L'ultimo prodotto che riguarda
The
la nostra
last
alimentazione.
product about our video class on biscuits are macarons. We left it as a last product because it has a very peculiar making process, so we need to try to have the maximum of our concentration to achieve a good result. We're talking about two important bases. The first part um, of the macaron is made over heat and then in a planetary machine, so we're making Italian meringue. Actually, we can use French meringue to make macarons, but by using an Italian meringue, the product will be a little bit finer because the majority of the sugars can better dissolve during the insertion of the syrup at 121 degrees. So egg whites and smallest part of the sugar together with the egg whites in the planter machine, and when the egg white foams, we can progressively insert the sugar to avoid that during the first step it makes the whole mass too heavy. On the other side, we have the tant per tant, so TPT, icing sugar and almond flour. It is important that this product has sifted more times. The almond flour is sifted and put on a tray. It is nice and dried at 130 degrees for around 10 minutes, and then it is cooled off, and then it is added in the cutter with the icing sugar. This is simply needed to improve the insertion of the powder in the whipped mass so that we have a product that's this as fine as possible. So tant per tant, icing sugar sifted, and almond flour sifted, dried and cut, put in the cutter. Then we have some egg whites. It must be put in the tant per tant and mixed, and then we will lighten the whole thing with the Italian meringue, a little at a time, from bottom to top, mixing from bottom to top. And there we could also add some colorings. We will dress the whole thing on silicone molds that are suitable for macarons, and then we'll have to wait 15 minutes, 20 minutes, so that the macaron completely flattens and activates a sort of crust, outside crust, because of the oxidation. This will allow us to keep the shape nicely. If you have worked in a not extremely correct way with the pastry bag, just hit them on the bottom a little bit to improve the spread of the macarons. We will cook at 170 degrees, close valve for the first minutes, and then we will open. 15 to 16 minutes of cooking. It is important that the fan during the cooking is, it's always better to have a fan that at the back of the oven, so to avoid that during the first phase of the cooking there's too much pressure and the surface of the macaron turns out to be odd and deformed. So we can start. Let's add the biggest part of the sugar in the water to start making our syrup. Low fire, low flame. Let's take our egg whites and put them inside our planetary machine with the whisk, and let's start foaming it up. Let's take a bowl and let's pour in the bowl our tant per tant. We're sifting in again so that we have an even finer product. Using the help of a spatula. And you can see all of the grains. This would make our macarons a little bit less fine. So we're going to remove them and inserting the other part of the egg whites directly in the temps. And let's stir the whole thing together. We will obtain a paste. It's very compact. And remember not to have a good mixing. We will insert little at a time the Italian meringue in the temps base. If in the beginning it's kind of hard to insert the meringue because the base it's very hard and it tends to resist, you can just whisk, like the first step can be whisked, and then later you can go on with your spatula. Every now and then just move your syrup gently to make sure that the syrup distributes all over the volume of the water. Let's start adding the sugar inside the egg whites whipping progressively. Lower the temperature of the syrup a bit because we're getting closer. Actually, we're lowering the heat and I want to avoid that it starts bronzing on the outside, on the sides. In the meantime, we can prepare a tray. If you don't have it, you can use a silicone mat or some oven paper. Clearly here we have a minimum of thickness to keep the macaron together. Let's take a whisk too. So let's take the syrup and just letting it touch the side of the bowl so that we pour it at the very side of the planetary machine bowl. It's important that the syrup falls and doesn't touch the whisk too much. Just increase the speed a bit. Always stir your base every now and then. And as it's working, remember not to ever get to a complete whip, to firm peaks. As it is whipping, remember that you will have to insert the mixture at a temperature that's not the temperature that it is now. It must be inserted when the Italian meringue is cold. Then we will blast chill it and mix it in the base. So we are in the final part of our macaron, so our Italian meringue is cold. We're going to insert it a little bit at a time in our temps base. As we said before, in the first step we can use the whisk to soften the whole mixture. or even a more rigid spatula. Some more, reminding you that this is the moment in which you, if you want, you can insert any color. You can lighten it a bit. You can see that there are not too many obstructions. They are mixing nicely. The Italian meringue has reached the density, the correct density and temperature to be mixed with the base. So, folding from bottom to top very gently. This is kind of a movement that you want to always do, and you want to train with this movement, but usually they say that the perfect movement that we do with macaron is really trying to defoam the mixture. This is quite simple because as we're mixing the Italian meringue with the base, it is so heavy that it will deflate anyways. So we're creating our mixture, making sure that we are taking all what's in the bowl, making it nice and homogeneous. Now what we're going to do is pastry bag, smooth nozzle, and we're going to put our mixture in the pastry bag to dress our macarons. Be careful because it is quite of a soft mixture, so you gotta be a little bit more careful. Let's close it. Clean it a little bit. I'm going to place our tray here, and we're going to dress. Always closing the pastry bag. I'm starting to dress, so pushing and stopping. Stopping just a couple millimeters before the paste reaches the perimeter of the circle. Don't worry about the tip because it will spread anyways. Okay. Now what we have to do, very important, first of all we're going to do this. Slightly, almost as if you were doing this with a risotto, so a couple hits on the sides and a couple hits on the center. Now it has to rest for around 15 to 20 minutes. We will notice that the macaron will spread and will form on the surface a crust, which will determine the very characteristic shape of the macaron after the cooking. So let's wait then. 117 degrees for 15 to 16 minutes. Close valve for the first 2 minutes and then open it to dry them out, and fan at the minimum. If you have a fan that pushes on the side, always put the macaron on top of the push of the fan. So if the fan is on the side, just put the macaron on top to have a uniform cooking. And once you've done cooking, we will cool it down and stuff it with ganache or whatever. And this is it with the preparation of the macarons.